Boeing has not provided us with the documents and information that we have requested numerous times over the past few months, specifically with respect to opening, closing, and removal of the door, and the team that does that work at the Renton facility.
Wow. Are you telling us that even 2 months later, you still do not know who actually opened the door plug?
The manager has been out on medical leave. We've not been able to interview that individual. We've asked for the names of the other 25 people, have not received the names. We've asked for the records with respect to what occurred. We've asked for what shift it occurred on. We think we know what days the work occurred on, but that's only because of our investigators' work looking at pictures and emails to try to get to the bottom of that information. We don't have the records. We don't have the names of the 25 people that is in charge of doing that work in that facility. It's absurd that 2 months later, we don't have that.
You are watching Maximus Aviation.
Greetings everybody, Maximus here. Well, this is probably one of the more important and informative videos I've put out recently, especially regarding the MAX. After watching the Safety Board Senate hearings on Boeing, I must say even I'm a little bit shocked at how Boeing, even now, after all that has taken place, has given the double middle finger to the NTSB, as well as Congress, but more importantly, to you and me personally. Initially, I was going to just tell you about the information I learned of the ongoing investigation into Boeing and specifically the latest Alaska Air blowout. But then I thought, you don't need to listen to me yap about it when you can hear it directly from the mouths of those directly involved in the situation. The full hearing was over 3 hours long, but I cut it down to just include information about the MAX to save time. I'll post a link to the full video, so if you're interested, you can watch the entire hearing, which covers all forms of transportation in the U.S. I'll try and give you an index in the comment section so you can scroll around if you like. And maybe you're not the type that usually likes a video, gives it a thumbs up, or comments, but I sure hope you will on this one. Because the more of you that do, the more YouTube will get this out to more people, so they too can find out what's really going on at Boeing, the FAA, and the NTSB.
But obviously, the safety concerns of the flying public is probably the main focus of this morning's hearing. Serious questions remain unanswered about the door plug accident on Alaska Flight 1282, and we need to be satisfied that manufacturers have strong quality controls and the FAA oversight is robust. The FAA and manufacturers, in my opinion, should listen to machinists and professional engineers who are asking for a stronger safety culture to improve certification and production quality, and we need to do everything to make sure they are not intimidated on the job to just keep the line moving. On February 6, 2024, the NTSB released its preliminary report regarding the flight 1282. I appreciate its prompt investigation of the accident and its preliminary findings. The report implies that the Boeing facilities may have significant, now I'm saying your report to be clear, implies that Boeing facilities may have significant deficiencies in record keeping. The investigation continues to determine what manufacturer documentations were used to authorize the opening and closing of the left mid-exit door plug during rivet rework. In particular, we want to know about the disclosure of records that may show why or how it was improperly installed and what caused the accident of 1282, which raises questions that we'll ask in the Q&A period of whether the documents even exist.
I look forward to hearing from Chairwoman Homendy about the investigations before the NTSB. Americans are rightly concerned about the depressurization event on Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, concerned about runway incursions, such as the one that occurred in Austin, Texas, and the derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, last year. I recognize that the chairwoman may not and should not guess what the board's recommendations will be or discuss non-public information from these investigations. However, I hope to hear about the status of those investigations and any preliminary information that is appropriate to share at this time.
Some investigations, understandably, get more public attention than others, but all our investigations are critical to improving safety. I understand that members of the committee have a particular interest in our highest profile investigations, including the in-flight structural failure of a Boeing 737-9 and the Norfolk Southern train derailment in East Palestine. These investigations are critically important, and I'm happy to answer as many questions as I can.
Turning specifically to Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, I am deeply concerned about potential safety issues with the Boeing 737 MAX 9. It is essential that the NTSB's investigation get to the bottom of this and identify any safety issues and potential solutions. To that end, it is equally important that the parties to the investigation cooperate fully with the NTSB, with Congress, and others investigating the incident. Madam Chair, how cooperative have the parties to the investigation been with the NTSB, and have you gotten timely access to the documents, the information, and the witnesses you need?
There are a number of parties to the investigation. Some parties have been very cooperative. For example, the Federal Aviation Administration. Boeing has not provided us with the documents and information that we have requested numerous times over the past few months, specifically with respect to opening, closing, and removal of the door, and the team that does that work at the Renton facility.
Wow. Are you telling us that even 2 months later, you still do not know who actually opened the door plug?
That's correct, Senator. We don't know, and it's not for lack of trying. It's not unusual that we don't get information immediately in an investigation. I can point to numerous investigations where this occurs, and it takes months and months to get information. But for this one, it's 2 months later. We know for a fact that there is a team that deals with the doors in Renton. There's an entire team of 25 people and a manager. The manager has been out on medical leave. We've not been able to interview that individual. We've asked for the names of the other 25 people, have not received the names. We've asked for the records with respect to what occurred. We've asked for what shift it occurred on. We think we know what days the work occurred on, but that's only because of our investigators' work looking at pictures and emails to try to get to the bottom of that information. We don't have the records. We don't have the names of the 25 people that is in charge of doing that work in that facility. It's absurd that 2 months later, we don't have that. Our investigators right now are at the Renton facility, and they are conducting interviews. Those started on Sunday, and they will continue for the rest of the week. One example, while we were out there, we investigated both the Spirit Aerospace employees that did the work on the rivets, while we don't know who did the work on the door plug. For the Spirit Aerospace employees, we were just informed last week, they're actually not Spirit Aerospace employees, they're contractors. They work for 3 different contracting firms, Aerotech, Strom Aviation, and Launch. All 3 are in the state of Washington. All 3 people work for 3 different entities for Spirit Aerospace. Those were not told to us by Spirit Aerospace. That information was told to us through the individuals who were being interviewed that contacted us directly. So we have engaged our attorney on this matter, just so you're aware.
Well, I will say that is utterly unacceptable. And the parties who are being investigated by NTSB need to cooperate fully. And Congress expects them to cooperate fully because you have an obligation to the American public to get to the bottom of what happened. Today is March 6th. I'm going to ask you to inform this committee in writing 1 week from today whether or not Boeing has cooperated. And I expect you to have that list of 25 names. And so I'm going to ask you a week from today to inform this committee in writing whether they provided those 25 names or not, because this investigation needs to get to the bottom of what occurred and what caused that accident.
Thank you. I will provide that to the committee in writing. The 25 names, it's not just the 25 names. We'd also like to get, and we've repeatedly requested from Boeing, the documentation that went along with the work of opening the door plug, closing the door plug, or any sort of removal, if that exists.
So please include that information as well when you respond in writing a week from today to let us know the level of cooperation you're seeing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Following on, the expert review panel found that Boeing employees are still afraid to speak up and report safety issues. There is a way for employees to speak directly to the FAA. Is there a way for people to speak directly to NTSB to aid in this investigation?
Yes, in fact, I received a whistleblower report myself anonymously. We received some information that I made sure our team has. It also went to our team, so we do have a couple of ways. The best way is for people to reach out to us at the website of witness@ntsb.gov, witness@ntsb.gov, and we'll make sure to follow up on that information.
Were you able to get from the company what specific procedures that they have for identifying, storing, protecting, retrieving, and retaining quality records? Were they forthcoming on that?
We have not received that information.
Does the fact that Boeing has not produced these documents or that NTSB investigators have not been able to retrieve them indicate that they do not exist or ever existed?
They may not. There are two options. Either they exist and we don't have them, or they do not exist, which raises two very different questions, several different questions, depending on which one is the right answer.
Would, if you don't have that documentation, what does it say about the quality assurance program?
We know we have been told, let me back up on that. We have been informed that they have a procedure to maintain documents on when work is performed, and including when door plugs are open, closed, or removed. We have not been able to verify that. And without that information, that raises concerns about quality assurance, quality management, safety management systems within Boeing.
So that's why I asked that first question about procedures for identifying, storing, and protecting. Everybody knows out at Boeing that the workers think that the plane will fly when the paperwork weighs more than the plane. That is their way of saying a lot of paperwork exists. People know that you don't move the line without paperwork. That's just part of the process. So the question is, are you looking at those procedures? And you're saying they're not forthcoming even on the procedures.
That's correct, but we are looking at those procedures. We go very in-depth and very broad. We'll look at the procedures, policies. We will also look at other work that was done around the same time or within the last several years to see if there are concerns with other work or records that may be missing. So we go in depth, and we are also going in depth on safety culture, safety promotion, safety management as a whole.
Okay, and so do you, and is the FAA in their aviation safety investigators helpful in this or not helpful?
FAA has been very cooperative and very helpful to us in the investigation, and we appreciate them. They've been a partner throughout this from the very beginning.
So I'm saying, do any of their aviation inspectors on site have data or information about what processes and procedures may have existed or didn't exist?
That is something that I would like to follow up with our team and get back to you on.
Okay. And then back to this point, every shift is documented. You know the workers that were involved in this particular area. You can get their names. You can ask for interviews with those individuals. And you're saying that that hasn't happened?
Correct. We have gone through emails, we've gone through texts, we've looked at pictures to begin to get a picture of the date in mid-September, or the 2 dates in mid-September that we believe the work occurred. We haven't received that information directly from Boeing. We also believe we know what shift it occurred on, but there is one team that deals with the doors of 25 people. Why we don't have those names today, 2 months later, is really disappointing.
Well, it's beyond disappointing. We have an entire economy that depends on people getting this right. And I thought that the CEO said that they would cooperate to the fullest. So it seems like this information is now stymieing your investigation. And it seems that it's knowable and that you should at least be able to talk to the individuals there. Do you have any concerns? There was a report about there could be an additional, because there was a consent decree that was about to expire, that any kind of other investigation by Department of Justice would impact your investigation?
I do have concerns. Our attorneys also have concerns, only from the aspect, we don't want to tell any other agency what they should or should not do. Where it becomes a concern for us, we'll get the information at some point. Where it becomes a concern for us is when employees and others don't feel safe to speak to us. And so they begin.
That is occurring now. And so what do we need to do to make sure that people feel safe and secure? That's part of the expert report. It's part of why we passed ANCSA, to make sure there was no retaliation. What else can we do? And we can't have a viewpoint that I just had to keep the line moving. That's not the viewpoint we want. We want employees who are saying, I have a concern about this, to be listened to and to be backed up by those FAA ASIs. That's what we want. And so in this case, we want to understand whether that kind of retaliation still exists and what we can do to make sure that these people feel free to speak to you and to others who are investigating.
I completely agree with that. The aviation industry is so safe because we do encourage, the industry has encouraged anonymous reporting, and through anonymous reporting address risk proactively and encouraged employees to speak up. That's how we have addressed safety and gotten to our excellent gold standard safety record we are in today in the aviation industry. Without that, there is a significant concern. I am aware of the concerns with Boeing, which is why we are delving into safety culture and safety management.
And have you discussed this? Because I know that the FAA administrator just had a 5-hour meeting with them last week. Do you think this was part of the discussion?
With FAA?
Yes.
I imagine so.
Okay.
I have a few things I want to say in a statement before I ask you some short questions. It's because I'm particularly concerned about NTSB's finding that pilots on Flight 1282 were unaware that the cockpit door was designed to automatically open during the kind of rapid depressurization event that took place on that Alaskan airline flight when the door plug fell out. As a pilot, I cannot convey strongly enough how critical it is for the flight crew to be fully informed of the features on the flight deck. An in-flight emergency is not the time for a flight crew to first learn about something like this. And then also, as we saw with MCAS, pilots not knowing about a flight deck feature can be deadly. This is even more alarming considering that this is the third time that Boeing has kept information about MAX flight deck features from pilots. And the FAA in the past has let Boeing get away with it the first 2 times. This has become a dangerous pattern which FAA absolutely needs to break. At the start of the MAX program, Boeing removed MCAS from the flight manual with FAA's blessing. Subsequent investigations raised questions about how candid Boeing had been with FAA about the significance of MCAS. Despite this, when evidence emerged of an internal plan at Boeing to intentionally downplay the significance of MCAS, these are internal Boeing meeting minutes showing employees planning to not use the term MCAS outside of Boeing because, and I quote, if we emphasize MCAS as a new function, there may be greater certification and training impact, end quote. They also show a member of Boeing's Organizational Designation Authority, the ODA, approving this plan. Yet, FAA took no action in response to this evidence. According to the Department of Transportation Inspector General, FAA did not even consider finding out who this ODA unit member was to ensure that he or she was not still authorized to perform certification work on behalf of the FAA. Boeing also intentionally hid from pilots the fact that the AOA disagree alert on nearly 80% of Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft was not functioning. When Boeing discovered this defect, it did not report it to FAA or inform airlines or pilots, opting instead to keep it a secret. Keep producing planes with this same known defect and wait years to fix it until a planned software update. Boeing's plan was disrupted, however, when the first 737 MAX crashed in 2018 and worldwide attention began to focus on AOA sensors. The company was forced to admit that the AOA disagree alert was not functioning on most 737 airplanes and that they knew about it. Unlike MCAS, this was not a safety-related issue. However, this was a clear violation of the MAX's approved flight design. And this is a finding from the U.S. Department of Transportation Office of the Inspector General. DOT's Inspector General recently looked into this and said, and I quote, "All features included in the type design are mandatory, whether or not they are required for safety. Thus, while the disagree message was not necessary to meet FAA safety regulations, it was required to be installed and functional as part of the approved type design," end quote. Yet, FAA took no action against Boeing for this brazen, intentional, and repeated disregard of its approved type design. If FAA is not going to bother to enforce its own regulations, why would Boeing ever obey them? So, Chair Homendy, here are my questions. Would you agree that, as a matter of safety, pilots need to know what features are on the flight deck?
Absolutely. It is a matter of safety. They need to be fully informed and fully informed so they know what to expect.
Thank you. Would you also agree that it is dangerous for pilots to first learn about features on the flight deck during an in-flight emergency?
Yes, and I would extend that to the entire flight crew, including the cabin crew. One member in this particular flight was hit by the door as it blew out. There was a lot going on at the time. It was complete chaos. They need to know what to expect, and this was a complete surprise.
Thank you. You're referring to the Alaska airline incident?
Yes, Alaska 1282.
Yes, thank you. If FAA does not enforce its required type design, do you think that that would make a manufacturer more or less likely to abide by that type design?
This is a difficult one for me to answer because this is not something that we've investigated.
Okay, thank you. And I am over time. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair Homendy.
But many experts believe that the answer goes back much further to Boeing's 1997 merger with the aerospace manufacturer McDonnell Douglas. It's well documented after this merger, Boeing's culture shifted from prioritizing engineering excellence to prioritizing the bottom line. This cultural shift is the systemic rust that allowed the door plug to break loose. In fact, the very subcontractor that was involved in the door plug blowout, Spirit AeroSystems, used to be a part of Boeing itself. Boeing sold off Spirit after the 1997 merger with McDonnell Douglas in an effort to outsource work and shed manufacturing costs. Even then, Boeing engineers warned that this profit-motivated strategy put the entire manufacturing process at risk. Fast forward to today. Those engineers have been proven correct. Boeing's weak oversight and failure to prioritize safety endangered the lives of the 180 passengers and crew aboard the Alaska Airlines flight. Chair Homendy, from your current and previous investigations, do you agree that Boeing's safety concerns stem from a culture that fails to prioritize safety?
I would say, with respect to safety culture, that safety culture has to be a priority, whether it's for Boeing or for any other organization. For this particular accident or event, we are digging in on Boeing's safety culture. It's absolutely critical because the aviation industry's success has really been a result of having a good safety culture where you have people who can freely report and stop work if they feel there is a safety issue. where they know that an entity takes their reporting seriously, follows up in it, and promotes safety. We need that at Boeing and any other entity where we conduct an investigation.